Hello and welcome to Off the Roll. I'm your host, Troy Hirschman. Well, it has been a little while since we've had a podcast with Off the Roll, and I apologize. I was pretty ambitious after Christmas, thinking I could get one in, but everybody's schedule was kind of crazy, and sometimes it's just dependent on the timing of the guests I can get on here. So I'm sorry about that, but we're making it up today with a discussion with Beth Herrell. Beth is the head athletic trainer at Huntington University and was named the Crossroads League Athletic Trainer of the Year this past summer. Beth and I have known each other for 30 years. We were both classmates at Vincennes University together, and partly the reason why I invited Mark Goodrich on the podcast. Mark was the longtime athletic trainer at Vincennes University and the director of the PTA program, and also owned his own PT clinic in Vincennes for a long time. He is currently retired, kind of just acting as a staff athletic trainer at Pro Rehab down there, and kind of doing what he wants to do. I totally understand that. So we had a great discussion. There's going to be a lot of talk about the Vincennes University Athletic Training Program, which unfortunately is no more. But it's a great discussion, a lot of trips down memory lane, and I think you'd be surprised on the names we're going to drop on the people that were a part of that program at Vincennes. So let's go off the roll with Beth Herrell and Mark Goodrich. Welcome to Off the Roll. I'm your host, Troy Hirschman, and today's podcast is a special podcast, and it's kind of personally for me. I'm a 1989 grad of Vincennes University, and today I have Beth Herrell, who's the director of sports medicine at Huntington University in Huntington, Indiana. And we're specifically going to be talking about Beth. Beth was my classmate at Vincennes University. But we also have kind of our mentor with this, Mark Goodrich. Mark is, are you still a co-owner of Pro Rehab?
I am not. I'm just a staff physical therapist.
Yeah, staff physical therapist with Pro Rehab in Vincennes, Indiana, but also was long time connected with Vincennes University as their head athletic trainer and director of their PT assistant program, and been a PT clinic owner and all sorts of stuff. But I like to tell people that my foundation was really set at Vincennes, and I think Beth would agree with that too. So it's just a privilege to have Mark on. We were just talking off the air that it's probably been 30 years since we've sat down and had a chance to talk to each other. So I'm excited about this podcast. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Beth, I'm gonna kind of let you kind of kick it off a little bit with your story. From a standpoint of how you got involved in athletic training or how you got interested in athletic training. And we'll kind of build it from there.
Well, I started off at Vincennes University as a general studies major. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but felt like I needed to go to college and get a degree. Vincennes was actually recommended to me from one of my counselors at school. And I had a need. Well, basically, I went down to Vincennes, met with Mark. I think I was going through the back then the catalog of majors, and found athletic training in there, and went and met with Mark. And I thought, oh, this sounds kind of cool. I didn't really know what an athletic trainer was. We didn't have an athletic trainer at our school, and I had just went through a knee injury, so I thought this sounds like something I'd like to do. It's a way for me to still be involved in sports. And basically, once I met with Mark, I changed my major from general studies to athletic training, and guess the rest is kind of history.
Oh.
Did you start in athletic training the first of the semester, your freshman year? Or did
yes.
you yes. Okay.
So I would have come down like on a school visit.
Oh.
I think I had already been accepted, but came down on a school visit and saw the major in the catalog, and I think we met with you, and then I decided that's what I wanted to be my major, and then we sat down and we made my class schedule. Yeah. So I think when I applied, I probably applied as general studies, and then you get the big catalog book and you're flipping through it, and that's kind of how it all started.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure if you talk to your boys about opening a book and selecting your classes, they would probably say, "What is that?" Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like they don't know what a card catalog is either.
No, no. I forget. I was watching some movie with my kids, um, and they were in a library. Oh, wait, I know what it was. We went and saw the best Christmas pageant ever over Christmas, and there's a scene in there that they're actually looking up stuff in the library about the Bible and the Christmas story and stuff. And I go, guys, that is what Google is for you now. That's what your mom and dad used to have to look up stuff and then go find it, actually physically go find it. And I remember Sam was like, that had to take a long time.
Do you remember when you guys were at VU? Did you have to walk around the gym floor this before the semester to get cards to get placed in a class? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
I think we did have like if a class was full, we had to take our card to a professor and have them sign it and then take it to the
Write it or
registrar.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you could do anything online,
Yeah.
there were 30 cards. That means there were 30 students in that class. Those were a long time ago memories.
Yeah, I think my first computer class was at Vincennes, and I kind of feel like it was. Well, maybe it wasn't at Vincennes. Maybe it was at Indiana State, but they all run together now, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, the white screen, the black screen with the white words, or the black screen with the green words, green lettering. There was no color, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is that, you know, Beth, you talk about coming in and meeting with Mark. I mean, in reality, Mark was starting the program at the same, you know, he had basically one class in there before us. So Mark, if you could give us a little background on how this whole thing started for you. I know you and I've talked about this a little bit a long time ago, but I mean, what kind of got you, if you can remember, what initiated this idea of having some type of athletic training education program at VU?
Well, I was only there about a year before you guys arrived. And in the summer prior to my arrival, of course, it always starts with athletics. And Dan Sparks and the basketball team was driving athletics, and it was like, we need an athletic trainer. And really, that's where the job came from, was being an athletic trainer, not necessarily a program director or directing the education and athletic training. And I think that, you know, as they're looking for a way to fund hiring an athletic trainer, they thought, well, if we can generate, you know, money and make it a full-time faculty position. So I was a faculty position plus the athletic trainer, based on the fact that they needed an athletic trainer and they wanted to start a sports medicine athletic training program. And so that's really how it was started in Vincennes University. And I was a graduate from VU, you know, years past.
Right.
And had connections and was in graduate school at Western Michigan when they called. And that's how I got to VU.
Did you do your undergrad at Indiana State then? Did you go Vincennes, Indiana State, and then your graduate school at Western Michigan?
I did. I did the same route that you did. Of course, I was a physical education health major at VU because there wasn't such a thing. But I do remember taking an athletic training class, ironically, at Vincennes. Do you guys remember Dr. Katie Grove?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From IU?
Well, yeah, but she was at Indiana State before she was at IU. And so she drove down twice a week from Indiana State to VU to teach an introduction to athletic training class, as I remember it. And that's what got me connected to athletic training when I transferred to ISU the next semester.
So
I actually,
go ahead. No,
I was a physical education major, like at Vincennes. Athletic training wasn't its own thing, so I was physical education with the option of athletic training. What were you, Troy?
Same thing. Yeah.
Your same thing.
Yeah. So Mark, in that class, I mean, intro to athletic training, was there anybody else in your class that went up to Indiana State?
Yeah, my college roommate for 5 years, Randy Perrin, also went with me, and he ended up taking the exam and was an athletic trainer for multiple years. And then we had another young lady, but I don't think she ever continued in athletic training beyond. Maybe she started at Indiana State, but I don't think that she finished. But she was from VU, so there were three of us. But another person comes to mind. There was a guy named Tom Botorf. I can't remember. He was a blind guy.
Yes.
And so Tom went to Indiana State with us, but just didn't have. I think in today's world, being a clinic athletic trainer, he could have functioned fine. But there were just so many roadblocks in, recognizing athletic training injuries and mechanism of injury and the severity of things going on that if you can't see, it was difficult to allow that. So he didn't really make it through the program at ISU, but there was an intent, or at least he started that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Beth, when you came in, you sat down, you talked with Mark, you're kind of like, hey, I want to do this. And at the time, that first class was a cast of characters, if I remember right. Did you ever meet any of them on your visit? Did anybody? Because I think when I came down, I think Marty Bacon showed me around a little bit, and I thought, who's this guy?
I actually do remember Marty Bacon. Didn't it take him like 3 or 4 years to graduate from Vincennes? I feel like he was in my nutrition class or something.
Yeah.
I think he was in our program for a while, but he definitely didn't continue on. I don't know where he went from there.
Well, I think he's the general manager at the Slippery Noodle. Now.
He was for a long time. I did meet him maybe 5 years ago there. I don't think he is anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that like when we got there, I mean, there were 3 of us, and it was Beth and me and Amy. I can't think of Amy's last name right now.
Was it Zabo?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
I've lost track of her as well.
And I think what was interesting is that, being a small class, there was a lot more, you could connect with us a lot better, which I think was
absolutely
really cool. So, Beth, first of all, this is not a great print off. You can't really see it very well.
Yeah, I can't even see it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
Something.
It's backwards, but it says the 10 steps of injury evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
I probably have my notebook somewhere at my mom's house, honestly.
Yeah. Beth and I have talked, we've talked about this a little bit. Every now and then we'll reach out and I go, do you still use that? And she goes, yep, I still use it. And I go, me too. In fact, I actually gave a copy. I have one high school student that I has kind of helping me out. She's kind of lukewarm about it, but she's generally, I think trying to be interested in it. And so I said, all right, this year we're going to actually teach you something. And this is the first thing we're going to teach you is the 10 steps of injury evaluation. So
well, we were pretty unique. If there was just 4 of us at that time, I mean, you guys were underneath me, but I was underneath Binky and Knight from Indiana State just a few years earlier, using that same information that they had given me that I had passed on to you guys that allowed us to function. And I think what was very unique in your guys' setting is that I had no one else, not that you weren't worthy anyway, but I had no one else to give those responsibilities to but the 2 of you and Amy. And so, I delegated, and in the process, you guys had a lot of great experiences.
Yeah, that actually, I remember our evaluation class that we had with you, and the book or the notebook we had was actually the notebook you had to put together for grad school.
Yes.
And I, obviously, when I graduated from Vincennes and moved on to Indiana State, my first semester there was one of our evaluation classes with Dr. Binky. Well, he basically went right through your notebook. So I'm sitting there with all this information, and all the other Indiana State kids are thinking, like, where'd you get that? I'm like, this is just review. We did this last year. You guys you're behind, man.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure made them like really appreciate you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that book, I can remember when, I miss the days of letting these, like us traveling. Like I traveled as a sophomore with the
Yeah.
basketball team, and I would take that notebook and probably my Arnheim athletic training book with me on the road. And we would go, okay, I got a thigh injury. We'd go to the thigh, look up mechanism of injury, signs and symptoms, treatment. It kind of like walked you were like learning on the job. But then if we had questions, we'd call Mark and say, okay, this is what's going on. And I mean, that year of getting to do that put us so much further ahead of the people in the program who didn't do anything but fill up water cups for 2 years.
Yes.
It was really an advantage to us, and I think that's what help has made us pretty good athletic trainers.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is we certainly had a lot more confidence when things would come up. Obviously, we ran into things as students that that we would still have to rely on our staff athletic trainers to help guide us through a little bit when we were on our own with stuff. But that was the one thing that I got comments when I was at Ball State was like, how did you know how to do that? Or how did you, oh yeah, I saw this back when I was working basketball, or I saw this when I was helping out with this, or, it was just that much of a confidence boost because we had already done those things.
And we were doing stuff on our own, like when you're traveling with the team and you're dealing with, I can remember coming back from a road trip and the basketball coach is having kidney stone attack and they stop the vans and they get me out and they're asking me, and I'm like, I'm a sophomore in college. Like, I know anything about this. Dump her off at the hospital and we'll go on home. It's
that's the other thing too. Vans. We took vans.
Yeah. Yeah.
We took vans. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So Beth, I mean, here's the other thing too, Beth, that I distinctly remember about my time at VU, was our anatomy and physiology class and our labs. I'll never forget Mrs. Bouillet. I don't remember those labs that she had, but intense labs, hard labs. And then she'd bring up her speed metal guitarist son, particularly when we were on upper extremities. She would talk about all the surgeries he's had to have on his forearms for all the tendonitis he had. But I mean, that's the thing. And when I asked Mark to do this, we were kind of reminiscing a little bit too. The other thing that made it really cool, in my opinion, was just the cohesiveness of that physical education staff. You had Bill Rump and Art Cortez and Ron Albers and Jennifer, who was the one?
Jones.
Jennifer Jones. Yeah. And you could go up to any one of them and stop by their office and talk to them about anything, really. I mean, mostly it was about classes and stuff. I mean, did you have a favorite, Beth, kind of professor there?
probably Mr. Cortez was probably one of my favorites. I had him for a couple different classes, and I probably interacted with him the most. I do remember, well, the lady, it must be Jennifer Jones, I don't totally remember her name. I feel like somebody was sleeping in one of our classes and she went and got some pots and pans or something out of the cabinet in the room downstairs in the basement and was banging it to wake him up. And so she was a bit of a character. Yeah. But yeah, I would say Mr. Cortez and Jennifer Jones are probably the two that I had the most interactions with.
Yeah.
Well, that faculty team, were there for 30, 40 years. And so many students benefited from their experience and their expertise in physical education and health and fitness and again, athletic training, exercise science, those type of classes. They were awesome. And then, they lasted until most of them retired in 2014 before I did. Things changed, and now there's no athletic training program at VU. There's really no majors except for, I think, fitness as a major, or maybe some exercise physiology stuff that transfers. But they have 2 faculty members in the program, where we used to have 15 or in the department.
That's sad.
Things have really changed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, It's funny because like I talk about like it's funny what things that stick with you. So 10 steps of injury evaluation and stuff. But I remember Jason Holmes in the foundation of PE class was talking about how he had everybody goes, how many of you want to be coaching majors? And they're like half the kids in the class, mostly guys, are raising their hand and stuff. And he goes, just so you know that you will have somebody, particularly in basketball in the state of Indiana, you'll have somebody that doesn't even have a degree level that you have deciding whether or not you're going to have a job or not. And he meant a school board. And now I go to school board meetings and I just start laughing because it is absolutely the truth in that. I mean, people are on school boards because they want to hire or fire some coach, or particularly basketball coaches or whatever. And he was absolutely right on that. And that goes for sometimes even department chairs and athletic directors and everything else that goes on with that. But I think it's interesting that VU had that much of an impression on me. I think it did on you, Beth, that you would remember some of the most basic things that you deal with sometimes on a daily basis. And I think that was what was cool about the whole thing. So
they had, I was trying to think of that today. The athletic training program lasted about 30 years total. And it kind of was dwindling at the end. I was there from 86 to 2002 before I moved across campus and started teaching in the PTA program. But Robert Cullen then continued from 2002, and I think he retired in 2020. But even at maybe the last 4 or 5 years, there was very little going on with athletic training. And the things that we did in the beginning, assigning students, I think from a liability standpoint, not being certified, not having enough staff ATCs, there was lots of reasons why they stopped doing that. But things that provided you guys with experiences in the beginning and probably another 10 years after that. I remember in the training room, we had all these pennants that you may have remembered. We put pennants on the wall for every institution where our students transferred and majored in athletic training. And we had, I wish I'd have kept those or taken a picture, but we had at least 20 or 25 schools where students left. And of course, the majority of the Indiana schools were the numerous ones, but Florida, for an example, University of Florida. So we had students going everywhere and tried to, again, think about how many certified athletic trainers we had. And I would say at least 50 kids left our program and ultimately became athletic trainers from VU. So we did some good things, even though it was just a season. I mean, it just lasted, like I said, maybe 25 years. But in that time frame, a lot of students benefited from what was going on there.
Yeah. I mean, I think about like, the class that was after us with Brian Opal and Jeff Tilley. And
there you go.
Was there somebody else in that class too with those guys? I can't remember.
I can't remember either, Troy. Probably were.
Yeah. And Beth, how many people?
We started with, 20 majors at times, maybe not when you guys were there, but we got more because our program was, because there wasn't any entrance requirements. Anybody could be an athletic training major if they wanted to, but many of them couldn't pass anatomy and physiology or some of the upper level classes. But they at least got their feet wet. We didn't give them a lot of responsibility because they weren't very dependable.
So I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Beth, but I remember I had to travel with basketball. I started with basketball because the one kid that was working basketball was was drinking screwdrivers in anatomy and physiology.
Yeah. I didn't always make great decisions, trying to pass out responsibilities, but I learned after a while.
No, I mean, you couldn't have predicted that. I mean,
yeah.
Because I was in that class and I remember like the teacher going, "What are you wait a minute. There's alcohol in this." Why would you want to drink while you're taking anatomy and physiology? I don't know, but
I don't know.
I guess you were trying to get through it, but yeah. So Beth, after you went to Indiana State, do you remember anybody from VU transferring up to Indiana State after you?
I believe there was a kid who came up and he was a little, maybe Mitch. His name might have been Mitch. Does that ring a bell, Mark?
It does not. It does not.
Okay, maybe not that. I mean, he was a little short person. I don't mean that. That sounds very terrible.
Was he taller than you?
No, not taller. Well, yes, he's taller than me, so I'm a short person. But I would have guessed he was maybe 5'5",
Okay.
5'6", maybe 5'7". I think he came up. He wouldn't have been in the class behind me, but maybe two classes behind me. But I don't. Obviously, if that doesn't ring a bell with you, then
Did
maybe
anyone
I'm.
transfer? Did anyone transfer with you to Indiana State?
No, because it was only me, Troy, and
Oh
Amy.
yeah, you and Troy and Amy. Yeah, I
So
don't think
Troy
Amy
went.
went on in athletic training
I
that
don't
I
think she
remember.
did either.
And Beth and I had worn out our welcome at that time.
Yeah. Well, before you
No,
guys,
it was I would just
I was the one who interviewed at IU and Indiana State, and I got into both programs. And I was doing summer school at IU to do my kinesiology because we didn't have kinesiology at Vincennes, so I picked that
yeah.
up over the summer. And I ran into John Schrader saying, "Hey, did you get your letter of acceptance?" And then I was like, "Yeah, I'm turning it down, going to Indiana State."
yeah, no,
I mean, just the summer school at IU. IU was just so big at the time. I always got the impression that Indiana State's program was undergrad was better, and IU's graduate program was better. IU, I believe, was going to make me like do an extra year,
yeah,
where Indiana State would have let me start right away. But I believe, is it Jeff Till that was in the class?
Tilly,
Tilly, he was in the class behind us, and I
right?
think I just remember them talking about how impressed they were with my interview at IU. I was like, I think one of the first Vincennes people to come in there and interview, and they were
Right.
pretty impressed, and so I might have helped open that door a little bit for
Absolutely.
Jeff.
Yeah. Jeff went there the next year, and I think he was in the program and left there in graduate school, went to Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but
And
I just
where did Brian Opal go? Indiana State?
No, he went to IU. He went with
IU.
Tilly.
Okay.
That's the thing is like Tilly got in. If I remember this right, Tilly got in, Brian got in, or no, Tilly got in, Brian didn't get in, and then he had to stay there a year and then got in. If I'm
Okay.
correct in that,
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
because I think we talked about it one time where it was kind of Brian had way more experience than Jeff, and
Right.
and
See, before I went to started teaching at VU, I was an athletic trainer in New Albany.
right.
So I knew Brian before I knew either one of you. And he was a student of mine working at North Harrison High School. So
Yeah.
that's how that was the connection.
crazy.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing is that there's those intersections. I think you did a good job, Mark, of exposing us to a lot of different things, and that field trip that we took to
University of Ev- Didn't we go to?
Floyd Central, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And little did I know at the time. I mean, Steve Schindler's there, but little did I know at the time that was all designed and built by Glenn Snow.
Right.
And Snowball and I have talked about that a lot. He goes, you went and visited Floyd Central when you were at Vincennes? I'm like, yeah. Mark Goodrich took us on a field trip there. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to expose you guys to where athletic trainers might work, and I had limited connections myself. But so traveling all the way across the state to see an athletic training facility in a high school, it was good fun as well as learning.
Yeah. See, I don't remember that one, but I remember us going to.
We went to Evansville, didn't we?
We went to University of Evansville and the other one down there, Southern Indiana. Is it Southern Indiana?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think we did that, and then we went to a St. Louis baseball game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some fun times.
Oh, that was the thing I think too, was that athlete training back then wasn't so formal between the professors and the students. I mean, even at Ball State, I mean, my relationship with Rex and Tony and Neil were as if, I mean, they were older siblings in my athletic training career, in as much as a mentor or a teacher or anything like that. Now, I don't know how it was. You probably didn't have that relationship with Dr. Binky or Dr. Knight at Indiana State, did you, Beth?
No, but Vince Stilger would have been the one that, like, he was like the mentor probably
Right.
mainly for all of us. He was the head athletic trainer at football, and I feel like I want to say he was like the director of the program, but he, like, when we had to do classes and all that stuff, it was Vince was our the person we met with. So Binky, basically taught classes, and Knight did most of all the research stuff, and Knight was real involved with the graduate program. So Vince Stilger was the one that we had mainly. And then, like, I worked men's basketball at Indiana State, so I was like, they always said I was like one of the first girls to work men's basketball, and I was with Ray Baggett, which, looking back on it, he had a lot of old school things. So there would be stuff that I'm like, what are you doing? But I remember an ankle sprain. I had a kid who had an ankle sprain, and I think the stuff was called Icamol. It was in a tube, and it looked like black tar. And he squirted it all over that ankle and put a cotton roll on it, wrapped it up with the ace wrap, and the kid came back the next day and all of his swelling was gone. I'm like, what is that stuff?
Guess what? Guess what I have in my training room at Eastern Hancock?
Icamol.
I have that is an Otho Davis, Dick Hoover, Jim Dickerson. So
old school technique, huh?
Yeah. So what we did with the Eagles, it was Otho used Icamol and something called pneumotizine. You can still buy pneumotizine. In fact, I have some. You can buy it off of Amazon. It's kind of it's like 10% menthol. It's got some calamine in it and stuff. So you would what Otho would do, and probably Ray did it probably similar to this, was you mix the Icamol with the pneumotizine, and then you use calamine. It's called an Unaboot. So it's calamine infused roll gauze, and you spread all that stuff all over the ankle, and you use the calamine gauze, and then you wrap it in plastic, and then you put a tape job on it, and you let them walk out. And Beth is right. I mean, when I have something that I need to get somebody back really quickly, I mean, that's what I use. And the kids are like, this stuff smells awful. And I go, but tasting awful, smelling awful.
Therapy.
Yeah.
I use that all the time, like on, venous wounds. So, so different reason, but boots are pretty popular or pretty common these days, even in physical therapy.
Yeah. So I mean, I get it. I mean, and that's kind of the way I feel now, Beth, is I'm the old guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm the old, and I'm sure you do some stuff too. They're like, what are you doing? I mean, yeah, well, this is, it works. And so why not?
Yeah.
Beth, how long have you been at Huntington?
20 years. I started in 2004, so 21 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Did you think you were going to be there that long?
Well, so I got married and was pregnant with my first kid when this assistant job came open here. And so it's like 15, 16 miles from my parents' house. So it was like a perfect opportunity. I always liked working at the college level. I mean, I always liked college over high school, and I started at college straight out of college, and I had like a 2-year stint where I did some outreach high school and did some performance enhancement. In fact, I was doing it right before this job came open. Got married, pregnant with my first kid, and this assistant athletic training job came open. I thought, I want to go back to being athletic training. And it's a chance for me to get back home. So got the job, built a house next door to my mom and dad. And so it's just kind of been a perfect fit. The thing that's really kind of funny, you can talk about how the Lord works in mysterious ways. I can remember being at Vincennes, and Heidi Hostler, I don't know if you guys remember her. Mm-hmm. She was one of my basketball players.
Yeah.
That she had a lot of injuries. We spent a lot of time together. She was from the Huntington area, and I can remember being at Vincennes joking around about maybe someday I'll work at Huntington University, or we'll both be around there or something. Well, she ended up leaving Vincennes and came back to Huntington University and went to college, and her husband actually was our soccer coach for pretty much the whole time I was here. In fact, this is the first year he isn't here, so
Oh,
he'd
wow.
been here. We'd worked together for 19 years, 20 years together, and Heidi would be up here, and I'm like, it's so weird. Like, I talked about this at Vincennes, and here we are. I'm at Huntington University, and you're at the ball games, and, it's, so she's one of my athletes that I learned on that I have, still see every once in a while.
Connections.
It is. It's funny how it all works out.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so your first job out of Indiana State was what was it called then?
Okay, so I've never worked for any of the universities. So my first job straight out of Indiana State. Did you say Vincennes or Indiana State?
Indiana State.
Okay. My first job out of Indiana State, I started with Orthopedics NorthEast in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I was the one and only head athletic trainer at St. Francis College. So I was there from like 92 to 95. And then I was like, I need a change. And so they had a job come open within Orthopedics NorthEast at Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne. So I transferred over to Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne, was assistant athletic trainer over there. And then 2 days a week, I'd go down to Huntington North High School and help the high school because they needed help. They had they had an athletic trainer that was not certified, but he had went through all the program, grew up there. His dad was a certified athletic trainer. And so I'd go down there a couple days a week, and I stayed out at Indiana State I stayed at IPFW until 2000. And then they were going through
and that's where we would cross paths from my days at St. Joe's. You and I would cross paths at IPFW because it was Division II at that time.
Yeah, and I worked with men's volleyball, so Neil Hazen from Ball State would come up with the Ball State teams. And so when I was working men's volleyball, they were like the D1 program. Well, they competed at D1, but they were still D2. So I went all over the place with them and, met some cool people and stuff. And then I left IPFW and went and did, that's when I started outreach athletic training. Basically, that's when I found out how much I was married to my job. I switched jobs and they gave me a company vehicle with a gas card, and I had 6 high schools the first year. I went to 3 high schools Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 3 high schools Tuesday, Thursday. And it was, I would start early in the morning and I'd drive to the school and do injury checks. Basically, the kids would sign up at the office. I'd call them out of class, do injury evaluation, give them a home exercise program if they need to get in with a doc or talk to parents and do that. There really was not much event coverage other than football games on Friday night and then certain tournament stuff. So that's when I was like, wow, there's times I'm done at noon or 12:30 if there's no one to see at the school. So I had a whole lot more free time. And that's when I met my husband. And then from that, I went and I did that for a year and a half. And then halfway through my second year of the outreach athletic training, I got moved to performance enhancement. So they were starting a performance 1 division within Orthopedics NorthEast, and so I started doing performance enhancement in January, but I went down to, I think I just had 3 high schools then. And then at the end of that school year, then I was full-time performance enhancement. And I did that for a while. We had a couple different facilities. We ended up moving back over to IPFW and running the Performance 1 out of IPFW. So I did strength and conditioning for the IPFW athletes instead of the athletic training aspect.
Wow.
And then in 2004, I was expecting my first kid, and they were, the program and stuff were changing. They were deciding to kind of close that division, gave me an opportunity to stay on and do strength and conditioning, but this Huntington job came open, and I thought, I want to go back to my roots. I want to go back to athletic training. It's close to home, and so the job came open, and I got it, and I was assistant athletic trainer till I think it was 2006. The head athletic trainer left. It was 2007. It was 2007.
Who was the head athletic trainer at Huntington then?
When I started, it was Kevin Vandenacker.
Okay.
And so he was here, and he left halfway through the year. It would have been like, I don't know, maybe Marchish, February, somewhere in there, because I just remember having finished the year by myself, and I had baseball and softball and everything going on.
Because
And
he'd
then,
been there. He'd been there a while, hadn't he?
yeah, he'd been here like, I don't know, I want to say 15 years or something
Yeah.
like that. But then that's when I needed to hire someone, and I got a resume, and I saw they were a Ball State grad, and I said, "Oh, let me email Troy." Troy emailed me back and said he sent me 2 words: hire him. I'm like, okay, that's all I needed to know.
That's awesome.
I hired him, or I said that's the one I want. They brought someone else in that I just didn't feel like was the right fit, and Chris's resume came in, and I thought, well, Troy said hire him. That's all I need to know. So I basically told him when I was interviewing, well, Troy told me I should hire you. So as far as I'm concerned, you're gonna get the job. If work will agree with me, and so they hired him, and he's actually still here with me. We've been together ever since. So
That's awesome.
it is awesome.
Yeah,
That's part of why I'm probably still here. Is you develop a staff. We all three get along well together. We're like family, and it
This
makes
is Rosie.
work so much better.
Yeah. Chris is kind of like that, isn't he, Beth? Like Rosie there, going to have a little bit of attention every
Kind of
now and
furry.
then. How many kids did Chris didn't have any kids when he started there. Now he's got what, 5?
4.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a army there. It's like they all come to the training room. All of our kids grow up around here. It's funny, when Chris started, my kids were little, and he can't believe, my oldest is in college and my youngest is a senior in high school, and he can't believe they're that old. And I turn around and say, "Your youngest is 7 years old. Like, how? Your oldest is 13. Like, how can they be that old?"
Yeah. What's your son majoring in college?
He's studying no, that's the youngest is going to study agribusiness. My oldest is studying ag systems management. So
Your husband a farmer?
No, he's purchasing and an IU grad, and my kids are going to Purdue, and he hates it. He refuses. Someone at church got him a T-shirt that said Purdue Dad, and he has never worn it. I'm not wearing that. You can get rid of it. I'm an IU guy. I don't care if my kids go to Purdue. I'll support my kids, but I still don't like Purdue.
Yeah.
So,
the thing I think is cool is that again, that story kind of demonstrates the connectiveness of athletic training, and whereas Mark, you kind of connected us to different types of people. And then Beth and I had the opportunity to kind of reconnect again. I mean, her assistant was probably one of the best students that have ever come through the Ball State Athletic Training Program, and was a lifelong. His dad was the chief of police on the Ball State Police Force. I mean, he was really connected to us a lot, and for me, when he told me that he was applying there, and then Beth called me about or emailed me about him and stuff. I mean, I just couldn't think of a better place for him to go. And I think it's really cool that he's stuck around, because obviously he recognizes good people, and that's kind of the environment that he was brought up in. And I think that's the thing, is that that all started at VU, recognizing who good people are and who to connect with, and then how to recognize that, and then try to make sure that you are working with those people. I mean, that's, to me, is one of the reasons why when I retired from Ball State was the fact that I looked around one day and I go, I don't recognize anybody anymore other than the people that I know. And maybe it's time to do something different. And I'm in a place now where the people are awesome. And I feel like I'm back in my groove again, but people do make the best situation. And I think that's, again, Beth, you've just talked about that. Why are you at a place for 20 years? I mean, yeah, logistically it was originally good, but you work with some great people, I'm sure.
yeah, I mean, I think we've all made comments before. If it wasn't for each other, you would always put, you know how athletic training is. There's times when you're in the grind and you're thinking, why on earth am I doing this job? You're working 60 some hours a week and, whatever. And then, but you always come back to, man, like going to work and the people you're around, the people you work with, you spend as much time with them or more time with them than you do your family. And so if you got people you enjoy being around, it makes the job a whole lot more fun.
Yeah.
Athletic training in general is about relationships, and relationships with your students, relationship with your athletes and parents and coaches and physicians along the way. And it really is. I mean, I work 2 or 3 days a week in physical therapy, and you have some of the same opportunities, but it's always a grind because, I mean, they schedule them every 30 minutes. It's how many patients you can see a day. How much can you bill them? And oh, by the way, you got to document everything, and it wears you out. Whereas athletic training in most settings is still not, you're not charging the athlete when they come in the door. You get an opportunity to meet them and truly, care about them and probably see them every day, which versus once or twice a week. So the relationship time is much higher, or the time that you get to spend with them. So I think athletic training is much more of a people-oriented profession where you use your skills and knowledge that you've gained throughout, your career to help them, and we all know that, and we take it for granted. But I think it's a great profession for you guys to be in and for me to have been in. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's some of the most fun parts of the job is when you have an opportunity to impact somebody's life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing where I still kind of cringe when I hear all this talk of third party billing and all this other stuff. I'm like, honestly, that seems great. And I get why there's a push to do that, but you're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, 30 minutes with somebody and then you're on to the next one because you don't get it. I mean, those moments where you actually get to sit down with somebody, you treat them, you rehab them, and maybe you sit down with them and talk to them a little bit. And maybe you talk to their parents or you talk to their families or whatever. Those are the situations that I've always valued, was not only just getting to know the athletes, but you're helping them through a tough time where they're very vulnerable, and you get a chance to be connected to the family and stuff. And I think to me, that's where in general healthcare has kind of lost its way a little bit. And I get it, because I mean, it's become a business, and that's part of trying to have all the cool bells and whistles of the cool things in healthcare. But to me, this athlete training level that we're all at, and even you, are you still going out and like taking care of Lincoln for football and stuff, or somebody else doing that?
I am not. I am not. I am actually an ATCR, I think is what I'm
saying. You're in the golden R era.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you can go to convention for free.
Yeah, I can.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So it's that happened last year after 40 years. And I was, I think the CEUs, just continuing that was not difficult from a learning process. It was just difficult from a time and money. And I'm like, and I would cover 2 or 3 events a year, and make $25 an hour or something crazy, So it really wasn't worth it, and it was just a season that I didn't think I was going back to, that I needed it. So now I'm an R.
Yeah. No, let me tell you, there's some. If I had my own business, if I didn't have a job and kids at my age, I would get a bunch of R's together and we'd go on tour and teach people about stuff that is like because these entry-level master students just don't have the nuances that we have.
And they can't tape either.
And they can't tape. That's exactly it. That's the thing. I'm actually, I'm trying. So my son Sam is 13, he has his own YouTube channel, which he makes all these silly videos on. Like he climbs trees and has a video that for like 3 minutes that says, I'm up in this tree and I'm doing this or something, or I'm looking down at this, or I'm watching the dog. I mean, they're all silly stuff. But what I want to try to get him to do is like I said, get a bunch of R's or not close to R's and create a YouTube channel where we're trying to teach some of these younger entry level master students that can't tape. Like, here's some really cool tape jobs that you can do with that. And I'm not sure he just looks at me like I'm from outer space. Like, Dad, why do you want to do a boring video like that? so I guess I'm going to have to enlist somebody else to do that. But yeah.
I guarantee most of them don't know the difference between a Louisiana and an Illinois heel lock.
I bet not.
They're like, oh, what? Ew.
And what's sad is that like the current programming doesn't value that. I mean, I don't know how it is for you, Beth. I mean, being in Fort Wayne, Manchester is going to be your closest accredited program. I mean, do you do anything with them at all?
I used to be a preceptor. We used to get them. We used to be preceptor and get students all the time, but then they moved their program to Fort Wayne out of Manchester, and nobody wants to drive down to HU, so we don't get them anymore. But
yeah,
I would make all my people before you tape any of my athletes. You have to pass a taping test, you know. And if I don't think you tape good enough, then you're going to go out there and practice every day until you can. Because the first time you do a bad tape job on an athlete, they're never going to let you tape them again.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get videos, pictures. The players come back all the time. Oh my gosh, Beth, you cannot believe how terrible. Look how terrible this tape job is, because we don't travel, and I'll get videos of like, look at this. This is terrible. They're sending it over the phone, like, so they know certain schools, they'll come get tape. They could be traveling a couple hours away and they'll come get taped by me before they leave because they know that school, their taping isn't very good. So it's just, I always think, like, how can you be an athletic trainer and not be able to tape? I feel like taping is like the staple of athletic training, but it's like you said, it's not.
Well, don't tell the educators that they're putting IVs in and
yeah, they're working in ERs.
Working in ERs, yeah,
exactly. And
and I think that's the thing about this is I wish, unfortunately, I tried the 2 days before I left Ball State, I called our program director and kind of buried the hatchet, in my opinion, and said, hey, I'm available for whatever you need me for. I'll be more than happy to do it because I have my mornings free. I can come in and do whatever. And my phone has never rang since. So, that's fine. I mean it hurts, but it's okay. I can impact things other ways. And so that's kind of the way I've looked at it. So
I think part of it too is just the education, like all the requirements with Katie and everything has just changed so much. It's so different from when we learned to what it is now. And, it's like you're trying to cram everything we did in 4 years into 2. Even though most of our programs were 2-year programs, you were still getting some stuff as a freshman or a sophomore that, you're now not getting until you're in the master's level program.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys were taking those practicum classes. I mean, you were in the training room every day from 2 to 6 o'clock, practicing the things that we had introduced in class as a freshman and sophomore, and then going on to Ball State and ISU and doing the same thing so you had so many more years and hours of experience than what those graduate students are getting now.
Yeah.
Right. And think of all those hours of taping ankles.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll like this one, Troy, though, since I had a referee in here. It was this year, so I don't know, within the last few months that he came in to get taped. And I taped him, and he goes, wow, that's like a Tony Cox tape job.
Oh, my gosh.
He was a Ball State. He played basketball at Ball State. I said, oh, I know. And I'm like,
Did you get his name?
I can't remember what his name is, but I know his face, but
was it Shane Franks?
I have no idea.
Blonde hair, kind of stocky guy.
No.
That's the only one I know that's an official.
This
So,
one was African American, so
oh,
no blonde hair.
okay. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't mean that. I'm not trying to be
No, no,
any.
no, no, no. You're good. I get it. Yeah.
Nice guy though. He's come in a couple different times though, so it's
I'll
funny.
see. I actually will see Tony today because I got to go in and get this, Mark. I'm going in to do a Cybex norm ACL test on one of my athletes at Eastern Hancock because um, Dr. Colwhite did her ACL surgery. She's a little bit lacking, so I'm trying to show her some numbers on how to like this is where you need to be at. And but the norm is at Henry County Sports Medicine because Ball State. This is gonna as a PT you're gonna and you Beth you'll understand this too. But Ball State had two Cybex norms. Those are we had one at football and then we had one at the arena. The one at the arena is a great story in itself, but it would take an hour to tell. But when Neil went on a medical leave of absence and I retired, the guy they hired, a guy named Chris Paducci, who's now at Nebraska as the football athletic trainer, deemed that they were old and inadequate. And so he had one of them just needed a software upgrade, and the guy that was out at football said it doesn't work, and the surplus guys took it to scrap. All it needed was a software upgrade. I about died on that one. The other one went to surplus, and the surplus guys, Neil and I knew pretty well, so they let us know when they put it on the website to auction it off, and they auctioned it off as a piece of exercise equipment. I bought it for $20.
Oh my gosh!
And so we bought it for $20. We moved it down to Henry County Sports Medicine. Tony's the director down there, and Tony had CSMI come in and put it all back together and got it up and going. And so I said I donated this to Henry County Sports Medicine. I get to use it whenever I want to.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going down and do that. But I mean, that's the thing is that even those things are lost upon how important they are with people and but yeah, so I'm going down there to do that. So I'll see Tony and I'll ask him like what kind of college officials are out there to do that.
Yeah,
So,
in fact, he would have played down there. It would have been in the 80s, probably between 84 and 87, I think.
yeah, I'll ask him. Yeah.
Because I asked him when he was there. And I think he graduated in 87 because I would have graduated from high school in
I
87.
don't know if Chris Shelton is refereeing. I'll have to ask Tony about that. Chris Shelton would be a guy that I would think that might do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was just kind of fun.
You had to laugh really hard about that, huh?
I'm like, I know Tony Cox. And then he was like, you know Tony Cox?
that is probably pretty again for somebody coming in and not having you been taped and then you get a compliment like that. That's pretty good, Beth. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No. And I agree. I think that's the thing is taping. That's why I want to do this YouTube channel is because I think the art of taping has been lost.
maybe you and I need to just do it, Troy. Maybe we need to start the VU taping
we
table.
could do that. The VU taping series. And we could have Mark come in.
We can have Mark come in. We can all three have our.
Because honestly, nobody was tougher than Mark, in my opinion. When you would grade our tape jobs, you were the toughest. I mean, yeah, you were. No, I know you're looking at it like I can't believe that. Yeah, you were.
Do you remember having to do those just the 2-inch ankle wraps?
Oh yeah.
So we put those on, and we learned our heel locks with those things. Yeah.
Actually, I have some of those in the training room.
Yeah.
I found a roll of that stuff. Yeah.
Remember we had to roll them up and tape the ends so that they wouldn't unravel.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, those.
Or dip them
I
in
haven't
paint.
thought of those in 20 years.
Yes, I actually have some of those in the training room. When I used to teach students to tape, I'd make them learn their heel locks with that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I can remember I had somebody that didn't. I used that on somebody, like where I pulled them out and used the cloth ankle heel lock followed with tape because I don't know, there was some issue with the taping. I had someone that cramps. They can't wear ankle braces. It goes up too high and it makes their calves cramp. So I used those for a while, and then I went to the power tape with the Power Flex.
Yeah, Power Flex. Yep, I use that. Yep. That's the thing, is that I think that's the thing also, Mark, you taught us, was that sometimes you have to shift gears and think
Absolutely.
creatively to you were always like, all right, so we have this situation or this issue or this problem. How can we think creatively that would be outside the box to help fix this? And I don't know if that came from just just being a common sense type of person, or thinking practically, with that, or if that was kind of a little bit of Dr. Binky, Dr. Knight thinking outside the box and stuff with that. And so
I really felt at the time, I mean, I was all alone, to be quite honest with you. I mean, they had never had an athletic trainer at VU ever. I hadn't been one by myself forever. It was my first job well, that's not true. Again, going back to the high school, I worked there with Brian Opel. But at the university level, first opportunity, so I think you had to be creative. We didn't have a budget. It was just trying to teach and survive.
We barely had an athletic training room. If I remember that first one.
But the one we had,
things did change, but in the beginning we were just in a big room. You're right.
Yeah.
We had a pretty good one by the time we graduated. You remember keeping the tape in the refrigerator?
I do remember that.
Yep.
It does tape way better. Like when I have teams come in with their kid after being cold on the bus, I'm like, boy, this tape is so much better.
It comes off the roll a lot easier, doesn't it?
No, I didn't even think about that. I need to go back to that a little bit, because I've had some sticky tape here recently that would I have a refrigerator in my office that basically doesn't really have anything in it, so I might put some tape in there to do that again. But that and then Billy, who would come in the athlete training room and use the ultrasound machine as a telephone, and I don't know if you remember that.
Billy Gentry?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember he came in there one time and he was like answering the ultrasound machine, and he was turning it up and turning it down and turning it up and turning it down. And I had to yell at him like, you're going to fry that thing. What? Again, just the cast of characters that would kind of float around there a little bit was always interesting as well. I mean, I remember.
Troy, I asked Jennifer before we got on if there was one memory that she can remember of the times you guys were there. And so we got married in November of 1987. So you'd been at VU for 3 months.
Yeah.
Right. And that's homecoming weekend, the weekend that we got married. And so she remembers you saying, "Don't worry about it, Mark. I got everything covered." And you did. You not only did you come to the wedding, but you covered the games on Friday and Saturday night, and we went on our honeymoon and came back the week later.
What professor would be like, "Sure, great, see you later." Go for
it. We had no other choice. I mean, whether you cancel the wedding, cancel the basketball game, or you get who else is going to come and help. So it worked out fine.
Yeah. No, I remember just, I mean, and it's funny because I get to see Sean Parrish a lot these days, and we talk a little bit about we talk about Ball State, but we talk about VU a lot, and the story I remember was that first road trip I went on, we went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky for like an exhibition, and we took vans, and I didn't know, I just jumped in a van that I just jumped in a van, and it happened to be with all the African American guys. And being a small town kid from Lebanon, Indiana, I was for a culture shock for sure. And I remember getting off that van and Sean and Tex looking at me like I was shell shocked. And they're like, "You're riding back with us. You're not getting out of it. We're going back. You're riding back with us." But I mean, that's the thing, is that those experiences, unintended, were still great experiences to have, and to have a little, everybody talks about this diversity. That was diversity back in the day. I mean, that's how we all learned how to respect each other and learn from each other and stuff. So
Beth, now who was the basketball? Was it Wanda
Schwartz, and I think, wasn't it Nisi Moore was the assistant coach?
Yeah.
Because I remember getting asked to practice with him.
Oh yeah.
They were like, Beth, bring your ACL brace the next day because Mark is the one. Actually, I'd hurt my knee in high school and had two knee surgeries and I was told I had a partial ACL. Well, then Mark looked at it and said, "You have no ACL. Your partial is like a frayed rope." And I didn't have the thing fixed until like 90. But I can remember saying, "Bring your brace." And so she put me on defense, which was great because that was my favorite to play. And I remember one of those guys making their very first pass. I ran out in the passing lane and batted to the other end of the floor. Wanda looks at me and looks at the ball down the other end of the floor like, "Well, that's a good job." But after that, I got to play with him all the time.
There
But
you
I
go.
remember I was driving the lane and I hit Nisi. And Nisi was a big girl.
She
And
was.
she like knocked me back. Like I just hit her and it was like hitting a brick wall. And I fell backward 3 or 4 feet and thought, well, I won't do that again.
So did you graduated from Norwell, is that correct?
Yeah, Norwell in 87.
And they didn't have an athletic trainer there then?
They did not. In fact, I hurt my knee in the summer in June up in Fort Wayne playing in a basketball league up there. And then went back and I was playing basketball at Norwell. My knee'd give out in practice and I'd go to the sidelines and ice it. And next day I'd go back and try to play basketball until it shifted again. I'd go out and ice it. And I'd go back the next day and play basketball until it shifted again. And I had surgery in December and they went in. I had a bucket handle meniscus tear. And so they cleaned that up, and that's when they told me I had a partial ACL tear and put me in a knee brace. I went back and played the rest of the season, and then the week of sectionals, my knee shifted again, and they were like, "You need to stop." And, of course, I was like, "Stop! Basketball's like everything."
Yeah.
And so then when I went to, it's kind of funny how all that just kind of led me into the athletic training, I think, because, my experience with it and then going down to Vincennes and, I went through all the rehab. I've experienced what all those kids are going through that have those injuries, and it's so easy to then help the athlete because you've been there and you've done it.
Yeah. Do you remember, did you ever run into an athletic trainer by the name of Tracy Allersmeyer?
No.
So she was an athletic trainer, must have been at the other.
Oh, Tracy. Was it Tracy, did you say?
Yes.
Yes.
Tracy was. Norwell.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. Is that her married name or maiden name?
Might have been her maiden name.
I think her married name is Tracy. I think it was House. Might have been her married.
You're right. Yeah. So she was one of our students at VU.
Yes, I remember talking to her. She was at Norwell she was at Norwell for a long time.
She was.
And yeah. I'm trying to think. She might have been there when my kids first started, but left. She took a job. I don't know if her husband got a job somewhere else, but they moved away.
Montana.
Okay, is that where they're at now?
Yeah. So that would have been a few years ago, but yeah. So it's, again, going back to think about how many athletic trainers, how many people graduated and become certified athletic trainers. You lose track of them, but over that 20, 25 years, I'm sure we had 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah. No, I think the thing is that if you start looking back and I hope you've looked back, Mark, because I mean, you think about Beth and Jeff Tilley, Dr. Jeff Tilley, I should say. Let me get that correct. And Brian Opal and Teresa.
Teresa, she's at Anderson now.
Yeah, she's in Anderson now. It was right, but I can't remember her married name now.
What about Brittany Brown? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. Brittany Brown.
Was she of All-State?
Yeah, she went to Anderson, and then we hired her as a graduate assistant. She's an athlete trainer down in her husband
Texas.
Kurt's like a football coach, and she's down in Texas somewhere. But Jason Eckerly, who is his partner?
Oh,
I can't think.
Wasn't there the girl before me, Missy?
Oh, Missy Capper.
Missy Capper was it? She was a Vincennes person that went to Indiana State. That would.
Yeah, she was there before you were. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeremy Payne.
Jeremy Payne. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a Jason connection. Yeah.
Yeah. Those two. Yeah. And that's the thing is that, I mean, and there's probably, obviously Robert and there's other people that have gone down the line down there. I mean, it's just, there is an impact, and I think that's the thing is that well, I mean, Tom Cooper, it's Dr. Tom Cooper now,
Dr. Tom Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, there was a huge impact, and like you said, in that 30 years that was there, there was a lot of great, not just athletic trainers, but maybe some physical therapists and some doctors and some educators and whatnot that have come out to do that.
Jeremy is a chiropractor.
Yeah, Jeremy's a chiropractor. I mean, it's just, I think that's the cool thing about that, and now that, we are hopefully impacting students. I know, I got a text, so one of my former students is the athlete trainer at Franklin County this past fall, and she had a tib-fib fracture, compound tib-fib fracture. And she texted me and said, you taught me, you've put such a focus on evaluation and how to process that evaluation. That's you, Mark. I mean, that was you teaching us the 10 steps of evaluation, but not only how to keep those thoughts organized in the heat of the battle, that we could make our judgment was clear enough that we could make the right decisions. And so that's from me to her, from you to me to her now. And then she's a preceptor for some students at, who does she, maybe, I don't want to say Cincinnati, but I know that at one time she was a preceptor for some students at Miami. I don't think Miami has an athletic training program anymore, but I mean, that just keeps going on and on and on. And so,
well, we have to give credit to Dr. Knight and Binky for a lot of those things, because I was teaching you guys the same things that I had learned, just a few years prior.
Yeah, those are all important things, and I think that's the thing about this. And then just kind of being able to have that drilled in us so much that it just becomes part of who you are, and what you do and your
nature. And just I use it every day, even as a physical therapist. It's not an acute, an emergency kind of thing on the field, but still you're trying to evaluate patients who come in with similar problems.
Yeah. No, it's how I write my injury reports. I mean, I just go through the whole thing when I do that. I mean, and Beth and you talked about that too, how you use just that in that. But the thing I will tell you, Mark, and Beth, you'll probably attest to this, but the thing that I use that I get the most compliments on is the menstrual cramp treatment.
I actually was thinking about that earlier. I did that on someone at
I was at girls semi-state last year, and I had one of our starting forwards came up to me and she goes, she's in tears. I'm cramping so bad, and we have to play this game, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, we were at Shelbyville. I said, lay here on the table. I went and found her athletic trainer. I said, can I borrow an ice cup? And she goes, yeah. So I get an ice cup. She's laying on the table. I'm doing the treatment, and all of a sudden I hear her go, Troy, you're a witch doctor. And she went back and told all her teammates that too. She had a great game. She played we ended up winning that first game in the semi-state, and then we ended up losing in the finals. But I mean, they all thought I was like some kind of like voodoo guy or whatever. And I just laughed because, and now Carolyn, my daughter, who's 15, she'll come down and go, Dad, I need you to do that thing again. I'm like, okay. Now she tells her friends come over. They're like, we heard that you can fix these. I'm like, yeah, I can fix them. Yeah. So go again. The pearls of wisdom that came out of EU were literally invaluable. I mean, literally, like when Cindy and I were dating, I'm so uncomfortable. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I can do that. And then I tell people that's why she married me, because I had this. I call it my superpower. It's my superpower. I can't give away my superpower, but yeah.
Well, there was a lot of wisdom being shared in classes, but you guys had to be a sponge. You know what I mean? You had to be able to receive it. And so many, again, if we think 2 or 3 a year went on to become certified athletic trainers, that meant that 17 or 20 other kids didn't take it to heart. And everyone has different interests. Not that maybe they were successful in something else, but those of you had a desire to learn, we were trying to share that, and fortunately, people picked it up.
Yeah. Well, as we're getting close here, because I know Beth is going to have to get off here in about 10 minutes, but what really drove this podcast and having Beth on here and having you on here, Mark, is Beth, I want you to talk a little bit about this award, Athletic Trainer of the Year for is it the Crossroads Conference?
Crossroads League.
Crossroads League. I mean, did you see this coming, or was it totally a surprise?
So I got asked to be on the Crossroads League. Basically, I was a Crossroads League chair, and put on the NAI Athletic Trainers Association board for like 5 years. I can't remember. I mean, like, this is the first year I'm off of it. So last year would have been my last term. It was a 5-year term where I was on the Athletic Trainers Association board. So I would have meetings every so often with other people within the NAIA, and then I would go back and report to our conference. Well, I was on the board and was learning, like, they kept saying, I need to have all the conference athletic trainers of the years. They would announce them. They have a business meeting with the NAIA, NATA convention. They recognize all the athletic trainers that have won their conference award. Well, our conference never had one. So I I talked on my AD and I talked to the conference commissioner, and it's like, we give away SID awards, we give away athletic director awards, we're given, coaching awards, but we do nothing for the athletic trainers. That I think this is something we ought to consider. They talk about our conference being one of the best conferences in NAIA, and all these other conferences are giving awards to their athletic trainers, and we don't. And I said, I think this is something we should consider doing. So they, the ADs, the presidents, the conference commissioner, I don't know who all, basically talked and decided to start it. So I actually won it the second year. The first year we did it by the conference commissioner basically sent out a thing to all the athletic trainers, and basically everybody picked 3 people. Each staff gets to vote, pick 3 people, first, second, and third choices. And Casey Hackman out of Taylor University won it the first year. He was the inaugural one, which he's a great athletic trainer, very deserving of the award. And so with me being the conference chair, I kept rehashing it of like, what's the best way to do this? I didn't want it to be a popularity contest. I wanted it to really be an award to, recognize someone who deserved it. And so what they do at the NAIA level is like, whoever wins their conference award, you then now get put in for the NAIA Athletic Trainer of the Year. Well, the NAIA Athletic Trainer of the Year award has like you have to be nominated, and there's all this stuff that has to be filled out. So I kind of went to, communicating with the athletic trainers in our conference. Do we want to make it, like where you have to be nominated and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we went that route. And so there was, I think, 7 of us that got nominated. I don't remember exactly how many. And then basically all the nominations went out, and then everybody voted for second and third choices. And so I just so happened to win it the second year. So I was not really expecting to win it, because it's not like we totally interact with each other on a regular basis because we're not traveling. Like we meet, right, for our conference meetings, but it's kind of cool. You put all this extra time in, you're trying to make the profession better, you're trying to make it better for the people within our conference, you're trying to recognize the people within our conference. So to actually be voted on by the colleagues and actually win it is, it's humbling but cool at the same time.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Congratulations. Proud of you.
Very, very cool. And then the last, you were, and Mark, you were kind of around too, but obviously with the passing of Rick Shaw this past week, I mean, Beth, you were a student at Indiana State kind of when he was in that area. So did you have any interactions with Rick?
Yes, I actually had a rotation at Rose-Hulman. In fact, Rick is the one who kind of got me connected with Dr. Farr, who ended up fixing my ACL.
Okay.
So Rick did, he helped me do strength and rehab stuff prior to surgery, and I spent a lot of time. That was a really fun rotation out at Rose Holman because, it's basically Rick. It's kind of like a Vincennes thing. It was Rick and me, and I don't know if we had another student out there or not, but you get a lot of hands-on experiences.
Yeah.
So I would have been out there it would have been my junior year. So, let's see, I had surgery in March of 90, so I would have transferred there. It'd have been 89, 90 would have been my junior year there. So I might have had I must have had a rotation with him in the fall, or
Yeah.
I think football might have been going on, but I think I might have been out there for 6 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but like I, did that rotation with him, and then like Rick and Vince, had me involved with the IATA as a student, so I did a lot of work with the IATA.
Right.
I mean, Mark brought up Katie Grove. I can remember staying with Katie Grove down there, and the night before, because we would help set stuff up and organize it and whatever they had us do. So I, worked with Rick a lot of that, and he was just so connected with Indiana State.
Right.
That, but yeah, I always remember Rick telling the story of he used to do a lot of Larry Bird's autographs for him.
Oh yeah, I've heard of these stories. Yeah.
Yeah, that Larry Bird would have so many things, so I can, he could, learn how to sign Larry Bird's name, and hear those stories. So
yeah. You have a genuine rickshaw Larry Bird autograph. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows who got one of those or not, but
yeah.
Eddie Bird actually was on the team when I worked with the men's basketball team, so that was, it's Larry Bird's baby brother, so that was kind of, fun.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I remember Rick primarily from IATA events as well, and maybe because he wasn't at Indiana State when I was there yet. But.
Yeah. No, definitely somebody again that impact wise, tremendous impact on especially in the state of Indiana, but across GLADA and the NATA and that was there's so many people rolling through my head that I want to have on the podcast, and he would have been an awesome guest. His stories there'd have been a wide range of stories on that.
Yes.
And again, I just drug my feet on this. I mean, I kind of do this when I have time. So sometimes I don't capitalize on those opportunities. Like I missed Jim Dickerson by 2 days. When we were he was going to be the kickoff, and went in the hospital and didn't necessarily come. Well, he went from the hospital to hospice and then was gone. And fortunately there is enough stuff out there that Jim had done, for the NATA that there's some record of some stories and stuff, but not like would have been in this informal environment. So that's why I think this is important, especially just not Ball State folks. It's you guys. It's, like I want to go down and talk to Vinny. Vinny, I've talked to him a little bit. He wants to do it in person, so I have to go down to Lanesville to talk to Vinny.
So Vinny Lanesville played South Knox South Knox won their sectional, won the girls regional last week, first time they ever won a regional. And so our athletic trainer from Pro Rehab that covers, which was also one of my students, met Vinny for the first time. And I said, hey, don't forget to say hi to Vince Stoger for me. So
yeah,
he's still around.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's funny because when we've been down there, he and Glenn are buds, and I guess when he moved back, he like me, he needed something to do. So he was driving a bus for Lanesville for a while. I don't think he's doing it anymore, but Glenn would go, yeah, he goes past the house and honks the horn, and
that's hilarious.
But I said, I can't imagine Vinny as a school bus driver, but yeah.
I bet his kids loved him probably on the bus.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, this has been awesome. Beth, I know we got to get you out of here because you got a meeting at noon, but thanks for coming on here, and thanks for telling your story a little bit, and Mark, thanks for joining us because it definitely made it, not that Beth and I wouldn't have had a blast anyway, but you definitely added a great perspective on it, and I would love to get your story from you sometime, but we'll work on that a little bit. So
we can do a part 2.
We can do a part 2. There is definitely a part 2. We can do that, and then we can add to whatever Mark's story is.
We'll get on here and do another one.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah,
it was great to talk with you both, and I appreciate your being part of my story and connections, and being such great students and going on and making a difference in where you guys have worked. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, right. Mark.
So we've gone off the roll with Beth Herrell and Mark Goodrich. I want to thank Beth and Mark for sitting down and talking with me today for over an hour. I wasn't sure if they were going to have time to sit down and talk that long. Beth's a busy person, so and Mark is too. So it was really cool to have this conversation and catch up a little bit via a podcast to do that. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Give me your feedback. You can actually leave comments on Spotify. I'm sure you can leave comments on Apple Podcasts. I'm not sure if I can get on there to look at that. I guess I probably need to borrow my daughter's phone. She has an iPhone, so to see if I can get some comments on Apple Podcasts. You can also communicate back with me at offtherollpodcast@gmail.com, or on Twitter, offtherollpod1 is the handle on Twitter, or X. I still call it Twitter. I guess I'm an old dude. And finally, personal Facebook page, you can reach out to me at Troy C. Hirschman on Facebook. So hope you enjoyed this. We're going to have some great ones coming up. Hopefully it'll be quicker than 2 months or a month and a half before I do another podcast. But again, availability and scheduling is key. And but when we do get together with people, it's a lot of fun. So hope everybody has a great day today. If you're listening, and go out there and make it a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.